Welcome to Command Control Power, a weekly podcast hosted by 3 certified members of the Apple Consultants Network, drawing from over half a century of combined experience. We talk shop, interview vendors and colleagues, and share what we've learned while operating our technology consulting practices. Visit commandcontrolpower.com for show notes and click support to join our community for exclusive access to patron-only episodes, special features, merchandise, and other membership perks. This is Joe Saponari of SciMac, and my 2 co-hosts are Jerry Zigman of MacWorks and Sam Valencia of the HCS Technology Group. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Command Control Power, Jason Detbarn, founder and CEO of Adigy. Welcome back.
Great to talk to you guys again. Happy New Year.
Awesome to see you. Yeah, Happy New Year. We were talking about something really interesting, speaking of the new year, as we were kind of doing the preamble of the show, which seems to always happen. We get into some interesting content, and then we scramble to start recording and then kind of go back and try to rehash some of the interesting subjects we covered. So we're going to do that, but I want to also save time at some point to just talk about how impressed I am with Adigy lately. I did a really cool automatic remediation for this one-off troubleshooting issue I was having. So I think I'll just tease that for now. First, let's talk about the holidays. So Jason, you guys did something kind of interesting, I understand, taking basically an entire company-wide break. This is something Apple does too. How did that go? What was that like?
We were pretty nervous about it because some of the bigger companies, just the way they operate, I think they can do it maybe a little bit better. Maybe I'm naive about it. But we were pushing to close out the year as strong as we could. And that's usually the sales team and marketing that's continuing to work hard, and then other areas of the organization quiet down. But we all stay very focused to getting everything we could done as we're leading into 2022. And I wanted to make sure everybody had this collective reset. So, there was time off. We have unlimited vacations based on what people are doing. We went into, after the end of the year, the first week of January, the whole company taking a week off. And that was void of obviously some of our support staff that raised their hand, got a pretty hefty bonus and time off later on. And because of that, the company chatter on Slack, on emails, meetings, people didn't feel like that they were missing out and they weren't going to be part of it. But the biggest thing was, when you take time off, you're always connected, right? And it takes away that context, that mind of being able to do the tasks you need to do. So everybody I talked to did some of the most mundane tasks they've done in years or decades, and being able to get their honey-do list and everything else done that they could, but just then coming back to work with a really clear, restful reset and knowing that we can really start the year out without having to go straight from holiday into hitting the ground running.
That's so great, man. That's really, really cool. I think you're right about the reset. I love calling it a reset because it really does feel like a binary thing. It's either on or off. When you're kind of quote unquote like available, your brain is still online. Like your brain is still like worried about the company, thinking, what's coming in. I wonder what happened with that. Did that person get back to us? Are they pissed? All these questions like floating around. And if you can really declare that you're off, like if you can make that 1 into a 0, and there's no expectation that anyone's going to be online, nothing's expected of you, you can really put it aside. And I think that's really healthy to do. And likewise, you can achieve, like you said, things that are in your personal to-do list that, when you come back to work, you can feel a little bit lighter. Like those things are distracting when you're at work if they're not done, and you're thinking to yourself, like, I need to get back to that and take care of that. And if you can actually take care of some of those things and just even do like a full review of your personal lists and deal with some things in your personal life, you can come back and just be totally free of that and devoted to work. So I think it's really healthy on both sides.
Yeah, and you also personally make a New Year's resolution on a bunch of things. Most people do, right? And you kind of start out that year hopefully on the right track with those New Year's resolutions, not just scrambling to try to find a new routine. You can actually sit down and exercise and do the things you need to do. Like that's always a top one of the list. When we walk through meetings, what are the things you're most happy about? What are you discouraged about? Unfortunately, exercise is up there for everybody because they just don't find the time. They don't allocate the time. As much as we do things remotely and have flexibilities, we're constantly tethered to our chat, email, etc.
I've been playing with this recently, just kind of stepping away from it. Even when I don't feel like I'm done, I know there's like a ticket to finish updating or tabs to close in Safari or emails in the inbox. I'll sometimes just declare a stopping point, and just get up and like put on a movie or go for a long walk or something. And that's been really great lately because it's like it just puts it in perspective. Like you're never really done. There's never a time where you can really say, I did everything, and now I can be off. Like you sometimes just have to just fake it till you make it at that point.
Peer group I'm part of, we really got to this point where we realized when we start hitting a wall, you're not doing any good by pushing head on the computer. It's getting up, going over, doing a few curls, whatever you got to do, and coming back. Now you're actually back to a steady state of actually productivity again, because you just never push through those moments of hitting the wall.
I love the idea. Joe kind of took the words out of my mouth about the week off, because especially since your colleagues have off, then you really don't have to be tied and connected. Whereas if you're the only one off, then you're always thinking, or someone might reach out to you. Creating that specific line in the sand of work and play, as if you will, is very important. And I'm trying to do that as well. Like I've been making it a point to now leave my computer in that workroom in my house because I'm working from home, and not bringing it downstairs, not bringing it with me and putting it on my lap in front of the TV and then just working all night. These little things are helping me to disconnect. And I think we're all trying to find these ways, because the line between work and home is just destroyed.
That's a great point. That's another good technique. I'm curious, when you guys take vacations, in your case, Jason, when you did this company-wide break especially, did you announce that proactively? That's one question. Do you send a blast email? Because, this is probably a good sign. I wasn't even aware of it. As an Adigy customer, as somebody who occasionally does need support, I was not aware that you guys were closed, which is a good sign, that it didn't have a hiccup. Did you send out a blast email or notification to anybody? And did you put some kind of recording letting people know when they contacted you, or like an autoresponder, hey, wait time will be longer, anything like that proactively, or no?
No, the continuity of our operations, and then the support team that raised their hand and voluntarily wanted to work that week. And then the appreciation from the rest of the company that they were willing to do that for us. And again, they got a hefty bonus, and I hope they take, a week off and really go mad with that vacation time and bonus. So we obviously needed to keep things running. We've got our operations really well dialed in. That could be done without a hiccup. So no, there was no external communications. We knew we could support it. It worked out great.
Funny, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I did put in a support call over the break, and I had no idea you guys were off. And by the way, the support technician was in a really good mood, so maybe that was the bonus talking. But the funny thing about that was, on a technical side, I needed an activation code restored for a computer that someone had mistakenly had wiped, and there was this whole issue on their end. And Adigy to the rescue, you guys were able to bring up that previously deleted record and get the activation lock bypass code that we needed in order to get back into the computer. And that was all support, and they helped without a drop. So those guys really deserve those extra bonuses.
Well, on Wednesday, I bought them all lunch and joined in a quick lunch meeting remotely with them, thanked them, and also,
nice.
Get them that nice Uber Eats lunch that they got. I think everybody's in a good mood.
Nice. I've always kind of walked the line on whether to notify clients proactively and send out a blast, we're closed, setting expectations, but also really not wanting to rattle a lot of cages of clients when they get this like email from me saying, oh, the whole company shut down for a week. I'm there. I'm watching my email. I have everything funneled in. I'm a small company, with really 3 full-time people. Their emails come to me. They're forwarded automatically. Voicemails come to me. So I'm still checking things. I'm not ignoring everything for an entire week. Basically, I'm the one covering for our holiday break, which was between the last week of December. That worked out fine because I could just check the mail, check the voicemail, check the email, maybe once a day, maybe a few times a day, and just get back to people. In many cases, say, hey, we're closed. We'll follow up next week. And that was fine. They got a response, or maybe deal with some things that felt more urgent. But I'd rather just sort of handle it as it comes up if I need to, because people will freak out even if they have nothing come up. They're just concerned you're not going to be there. So I think that's the line I've always walked on that. But I'm curious, how do you guys handle that with your companies?
In my case, we actually were considering taking that week because it's slower. A lot of businesses are off, and even families that we do support in the rare occasion, they're vacationing or doing whatever. So we just made it unofficial, and we were around kind of hanging out there. But I found most of the days I was able to get some side stuff done. So we were pretty low key during that week, and we didn't need to officially do anything about it.
Nice. I do know a lot of service providers do establish that week. And what I think is a nice exercise of that is you tell the customer, listen, we're off, we're enjoying time. we're on call for anything urgent, right? And now you really are putting onus on them to really establish what they truly believe is urgent or not. And it's a good case to understand, do I have a valuable client that really articulates what is clearly urgent or not? Hopefully that they all do appreciate that and manage that priority accordingly.
Awesome. That's offering some nice expert guidance on the consulting business operations side of things, Jason. So you're multi-talented. I know you came from our world, right? How long ago was that? And how distant does that feel for you at this point?
It's been a while. I went to IT Nation conference when was that, in November? Wow. A lot of other faces I know with a lot of gray hair, and we've been doing this for a while now. When I started at Kaseya in 2007, that was like the initial time period of people starting to move from break-fix businesses to recurring revenue managed services. So that was the new frontier, and in some ways, it's still kind of the wild, wild west out there. But it's been a while now.
You guys are right at the forefront. Shifting gears to talk a little bit about my recent wins with Adigy. As recently as yesterday, I had a migration assistant debacle with a client trying to migrate from a time machine backup over the network, which in my experience has been okay. I mean, I've figured out a workaround that works very reliably. Haven't really had issues in a long time until yesterday. And this was migrating from a Synology time machine backup to a new machine running Monterey. What seemed to be happening was the backup kept unmounting in the midst of the migration in progress. Migration assistant would throw up a message saying, attempting to reconnect to your source, make sure they're on the same network, that kind of thing. I had Adigy installed on the destination machine, the new machine. That's how I was overseeing the migration for this home user remotely. Got no infrastructure really in their home. Can't make a VPN connection to their home. Can't use ARD that way. But I can use screen sharing through Adigy Live Desktop, which is just a fantastic feature and a total game changer during COVID and doing all these migrations remotely, as I talked about on the show. So I had Adigy on there. I connected using Live Terminal. I checked for the presence of the time machine backup volume in the volumes directory. Didn't see it. So clearly I can confirm it was unmounted. I used Adigy Live Terminal to mount the connection to the backup server. And then I used the command line again to mount the disk image, the sparse bundle of the time machine backup. And sure enough, within less than a minute, Migration Assistant resumes the connection in progress. It just says, oh, okay, there it is. And it keeps going. I was impressed with that in and of itself. I was blown away. I was like, this is great. This is a game changer. Then I found, unfortunately, the problem repeated a few times. So Migration Assistant kept losing the connection. I actually scripted the commands that I was using for a one-off script, run it in Adigy that way. That worked again. But I went even further. I found that every 45 minutes to an hour, it kept disconnecting. So I actually used a few features of Adigy to solve the problem. Created a custom fact to show whether that backup drive basically had been unmounted because the folder path would disappear from volumes. So I used a custom fact to say time machine unmounted. I created a monitoring item to check the custom fact to see if it was unmounted, and an automatic remediation in the monitoring item to actually run the script and remount the volume. So I kicked this all off. I wrote that all in the course of maybe 30 minutes last night, a little after 10 o'clock at night. I'm going to sleep. I didn't even bother to wait to see if the next one would work. I was pretty confident that I had all the parts in place. I woke up in the morning, the migration had finished, and I saw dutiful emails every hour from Adigy saying, the remediation ran and it reconnected. And sure enough, the migration completed overnight. I was pretty blown away that I was able to chain together these various Adigy features to handle this problematic migration. So kudos to you, Jason. It's very reliable, very cool software.
That's awesome to hear. And I think this has always been the area of the dream where vendors talk about automation. The goal is to think about culturally where we're dealing with repetitive tasks and try to detect them and deal with them. So everybody else in the world is going to have migration assistant problems, but this utility, if you use it again, you're not going to have that problem again. It could very well be the NAS and how you're connecting with it, but now you're able to robustly move through that. And that's where our community too, that'd be a great fact if you're open to submitting it to our community. Other admins can take advantage of that and use that. I also love what they've done with the reset and install. Getting a new machine up and going would take forever. If you did a wipe of it, you wipe out the whole disk and then you have to do an internet install. But now with one button, you can hit a reset and in a few seconds, the machine's booted back up to a clean OS image. Something Apple put out over the summer, and it's great. It just changes the whole workflow for companies. That's great to hear.
Really, really cool. I mean, there's so much stuff like that you said in the community, even on the Adigy Slack channel. I was just thanking Dave Provine for one recently, longtime listener to our show and frequent Adigy contributor. He wrote a script. It allows non-admins to manage printers, and this is stuff you can like find on the internet and stuff, but he put it together in a script. Oh, this could be useful. So I put it in my instance of Adigy. Sure enough, a couple weeks go by and somebody says, hey, I want to manage this printer, but I'm not an admin. That was a 2-minute phone call. I just clicked the button on the script that I already had set up, thanks to Dave, and it ran and it worked. And the user was like, oh, great, I can manage the printer now. I'm like, this is like miraculous. I mean, it was just so great. And there's so many examples like that. It's a really thriving ecosystem, I would say, of all the community support for Adigy.
Yeah, and this is why the agent side is still so important. People understand MDM is an importance, but MDM only does a little bit. And so just being able to detect those scenarios and move on. So I'll share with you a couple of things kind of on that note that you're going to see in our upcoming Innovate conference. So in February on the 22nd, 23rd is our virtual user conference. We used to do it in person. And you guys were slated for that in 2020 before it fell away because of COVID. But we're shipping some massive things in this conference. One of the big ones, we call them flex policies. So in policies, that's the most scalable part of our platform. And our whole mantra is security, scalability, and end user experience. Those three boxes we're always concentrating on. So when it comes to scale, how are we going to be able to make sure we're scaling our operations? Policies today have been helpful because of the hierarchy that we have, but it also has been limiting because if you want to be able to have a policy for specifically laptops, desktops for, let's say, power management or M1. And then you also want to have a policy specifically for engineers or executives. There's a lot more work involved in trying to manage that thus far with Adigy. We've already have it in open beta, and as you're listening to this, it's going to be really open to the public and it's defaulted. But a new UI for policies is in beta right now. Multi-policy assignments. We can actually assign machines to multiple policies to accomplish that same need. So I can say, okay, I want this specific software on every engineer's machine, right? And that's also going to be your customer policy that they're in, the engineer, let's say a laptop M1 policy that you've got, and it's layering that cake together to make sure that you're scaling all of those things that you want across your portfolio. And the last one is our automatic policy assignment. So on that certain scenario, still monitoring remediation for transactional things is the best thing you can do. But now we can have a fact that automatically applies a device to a particular policy. So as it comes in, like I said, with a laptop, or very soon, Azure AD, Okta, Google, groups that they're in, automatically assign them to the policies. So it really changes the ball game with how much more scale you can provide.
The whole concentration of working on with the IDPs and everything, that's pretty awesome to hear. And auto assigning to policies. I mean, the automation that you're building in and making sure that you have ways of doing things so that you're not repetitive in your nature. You can reapply that to other clients or put it in the community and others can apply that to their clients. So that's a huge add in there.
It's a hard scenario, but we've always said as an MSP, a consultancy overall, you've got to sit down for a little bit of time, look through your tickets, look for those repetitive tasks or those really high priority issues that come about and start to detect them and hopefully remediate them. One of the things that people a lot of times do is they'll just collect data, not necessarily remediation, but what you're doing now is you're taking a snapshot of processes, other things that are happening on the machine. So when you go back and look at this ticket 4 hours, a day later, you've got relevant information when this issue occurred. We're just chipping away at scaling things and scaling our operations one day at a time. You mentioned our live desktop, which is using the screen sharing there. I would highly recommend our Splashtop implementation. That was added back in full public availability. I think it was in August. We have people loving that utility itself too. And then our live desktop that you just mentioned, if you use our beta of that, it's so much faster, even faster than you're dealing with today. And if you're in different countries, we have relay points. So you actually have a really fast remote control session, no matter where you're at in the world. Wow. So take a look at that beta if you haven't done that either.
Jason, I've been using almost exclusively Live Desktop 2. I have been and continue to be a subscriber to Splashtop. So I love that product and really see the value you were mentioning in terms of the speed of Live Desktop 2. I prefer it. It's been the tool that I go to first, and it seems like I can connect that much faster. And not to throw Splashtop under the bus, can you tell us, for the person who's not too familiar with the Adigy product, what's the difference between the two? Because they're both doing screen sharing.
Yeah, the Splashtop one deploys a streamer on the device itself, and you really are just using those mechanisms for a very fast remote control session. And we've always made sure that there's multiple remote control utilities involved. So you have to meet the criteria of end user permission on the device when they're logged in, et cetera. But we want to make sure that you're not using just one tool. We've got multiple ways that you can remotely support the device. On the Live Desktop side, using that embedded screen sharing, it allows a really fast connection without having the end user do screen recording. That was the major reason. There's a big SIR got released. That one required screen recording for remote control. And as much work as we did in prompting the community, hey, look, this is going to be a big change in workflow, it took everybody off guard. We were prepared for it. We're doing webinars, but I don't think people gravitated to what that was going to mean. Having every end user go into and opt in to screen recording for that app is a pain. So this is the only utility out there where you can help a user immediately without them having to dig in the screen recording settings, which just slows everything down, especially if it's an unattended device, right? That's going to be even more of a challenge.
I don't know if people understand how fantastic Live Desktop is. My workflow for setting up like a home user remotely for a migration is open the box, plug it in, turn it on, US English, unless you want to get really fancy and add another layer of complication. Basically skip everything and just get me to the desktop, with a temp user account. Go to Safari, type in my little short URL to download the Adigy configuration profile, the MDM enrollment profile. Open system preferences, click install in profiles. That's it. That sounds longer than it actually takes in practice. Once they click install to install the configuration profile, Adigy enrolls, the agent gets installed, Live Desktop gets turned on for me. That means Apple Remote Desktop gets turned on, and they don't have to approve anything. I can just remotely connect using the temporary user account credentials that they created, or I can create a user account in Adigy. I mean, I don't even want to say this because I feel like this is almost too easy, like from Apple's perspective, but it's really fantastic. It works really well. But I also agree it's nice to have that second option. We've always tried to have on a server Apple Remote Desktop configured over VPN, TeamViewer, or Splashtop, or whatever you use. So it's nice to have the Splashtop integration, but there's nothing like the Adigy Live Desktop. It's really very seamless.
It's awesome to hear. It's really good to hear. And, obviously if it's in Apple Business Manager, then it's there immediately without having to go through anything for the end user physically.
Zero touch. Yeah. It's fantastic. I've played with that recently too. Automated device enrollment, integration with Apple Business Manager, and also Adigy Identity. So I had a new client come on who was actually already kind of familiar with MDM concepts and things from probably their previous provider. I could just tell they had a little bit higher expectations. So I thought for onboarding a brand new machine out of the box, they were already set up in ABM. So I just integrated that with Adigy, did some research in this Adigy Slack channel and set it up. They had 2 machines for us to test with. We onboarded the first one and everything worked. I was impressed, out of the box. It enrolls in Adigy, then sets up the Adigy identity configuration with, in this case, I think it was Microsoft 365. So they get a prompt to log in using their existing email account credentials, and that creates their user account. So they're in. I have remote access. Couldn't be easier. I was really, really impressed with that.
The thing that I love about it is, as an MSP, one thing you can do is, I don't know if you configure the backdrop and the logo for that login page, but that can be your MSP logo and login. And then also, you can obviously select, depending on the customer, which IDP they have to use for login, whether it's Google, Azure, Okta, et cetera. But you can then customize their logo too. So that experience of a brand new client that is going to have the experience and clearly the knowledge of an Apple expert, that is, machine comes out of the shrink wrap and their logo pops up and they log in with their company login. That is a first impression that they'll never find at 99% of MSPs out there, right?
It's a great point. Really impressive from their perspective too, just to have that work. It looks like you've probably done a lot of work to to make that work. I mean, I think they associate that with like our companies, when they see that. So that's, great value add just to go to the extra step. That was the fun part for me, was like getting a copy of their backdrop and like a logo of theirs and stuff and formatting it and stuff. It was fun to like really care about the appearance and then think from their perspective how cool that's going to be when they just open a box, like you said, crack the shrink wrap. And how did that happen? They know it's me? How does that even work? They must think it's like magic. So it's pretty impressive.
Joe, you are absolutely giddy.
I'm all in, man. Great. This is honest feedback. I've had a lot of great experiences with Adigy lately with all these features. And the thing I mentioned earlier, it's nice to now kind of know how to set that up. Maybe I won't need this workaround for like a disconnecting time machine backup, I hope, in the future. Having had the experience of like creating the script, creating the monitoring item, creating the remediation, I imagine there's lots of examples I can, come up with now in the future where at least the learning cost has already kind of been paid, and I can just pretty quickly whip something up. So yeah, it's fun to get to know these tools better too.
I would wholeheartedly agree, because we have to learn as we go. We're not always having the ability to train or attend a webinar, so we have to kind of learn on the fly. You build that capital in for that one customer that maybe took a little bit longer to do, but now it's in your portal, in the singular multi-tenant portal, which I can't stress enough how huge that is. And then you can apply that elsewhere because you have that already built in. And who knows, I don't know how you're billing that, but maybe that customer pays a little bit more for your time to get that work done. But at the same time, you're becoming much more efficient along the way. On the point of the community as well, how much feedback you get from technicians in our field, and how much of that is ultimately requests to build into the product, and how much of an account you take that in when you have your meetings to build out new features?
Oh, it's paramount. I mean, from the very beginning, we used to collect it directly in the product. We would get a little bit too much information there. But what we do is we mark every ticket that comes in for feature requests. Those all get collected for us to review the quantity of results. And so, for example, one thing that we've been needing to do for a little while is pre-stage deployment, making sure that we can deploy, whether it be like a jump cloud or some other utility, a security software tool, at the moment the device literally turns on and joins to MDM, not after the login. That's being done right now as we speak before Innovate. Even on betas, it's always about collecting as much information as soon as you can. So as we put it out in beta in people's hands when they can actually touch it and feel it and getting their feedback, we literally have 3 questions we asked them with like a 1 to 5 rating and comments. And I'm constantly watching that. Last week, I think it was Multi-Policy that first launched. I review the feedback in Slack as it's coming in. So we're all very attuned to that. That's the speed and momentum that we can keep building product and innovating. And that's why at this innovation conference, I mean, we've never released this massive of a change. Our UI is all going to look very, very different and very clean, because we've been doing this for like 2 years under the hood, very slowly incrementing components that you haven't really seen fully yet. So it's all going to be shifting over and hopefully becoming a lot easier to use as well as more powerful.
It's kind of exciting to hear about all these UI changes that we're going to get a chance to see. Very cool. But I could probably do better about submitting any of my own feature requests. I don't know that I'm always like that team player that puts it out there. I kind of think things to myself, and then when it comes out, I'm like, oh, great, that was, what I was thinking. I would encourage more people to do that. I think personally, I don't do it enough.
One thing that I think you're going to really love, Ralph Echemedia is one of the guys that's helped us before, the ethical hacker. If you've watched Mr. Robot, Snowden, he's been part of all those shows and those movies. He's doing an incident response session where you're going to go through working scenarios and how you manage a security incident response too, and making sure that you build out a plan for how you can deal with any overall security incident as an IT person. This is top of mind for everybody right now. We know those regulations are going to be coming, and if our IT professionals can get really ahead of it, you're really going to lead the market, and of course safeguard your customers and know and feel like I've got a plan if and when something happens. I know what to do. I pull out my playbook. I've kind of even rehearsed it a bit and go through it. So it's going to be an awesome event. He's dealt with it from the largest level of government agencies and knows this stuff really, really well. So it's going to be a really good event in the evening, as well as everything else that we'll be showing off and doing.
Yeah, it seems very security minded. Also, I like the thought of the MSP panel discussion. That kind of stuff always rings true to me. Certainly with, as you mentioned, the world that we live in with everyone being so remote, there are so many concerns on the security level that you can't have enough discussions on it. Not just talks about it, but figuring out ways to deal with it as well. That's the big piece, is like you can chat about it all you want, but you need to have remediation tasks to deal with these issues. So February 22nd through the 24th of this year, huh?
Yeah, it's going to be a phenomenal event. Go register. The link, if you guys put that in the show notes, it'd be phenomenal if you guys could attend. No matter if you're a customer or a prospect, you will get a lot of information out of the event itself. Pick what makes sense during the schedule. It's also very interactive, so you'll see a lot of people chatting and talking and discussing things during the session too.
Joe, Sam, and I attended some of those sessions last year, and they were just absolutely terrific. And there were different tracks that you could follow. Will you be doing that same sort of thing, or will it be like a constant flow and everybody will sort of be in the same room?
It'll be a constant flow of certain things. We're going to have breakout sessions for different tracks, like you just mentioned.
Those were terrific last year.
Like the intimate level of doing things. And then the rest of those panel discussions, we always trying to find the right mix. The first user conference, I think we did too much talking. The second one, everybody commented we did too little. So find the right balance where we're helping to provide good value and then really helping these amazing customers. Like, it's amazing what some of these companies do, and not that complicated, just new, interesting ways, whether it be with our product or different processes that they go through. That's the real value, I think, for everybody, is seeing the community coming together with a lot of information, ideas.
Well, it's really hit home in the last couple of years how invaluable this product is. It was valuable pre-COVID, but now I couldn't imagine running a business without having Adigy as my Swiss Army knife. I'm able to do so many things with it, as Joe and Sam mentioned, and you, Jason. And sometimes you're presented with a problem, you just have to take a step back for a moment. Wait a minute, I've got this amazing tool. I bet I could just solve it right here in Adigy. And sure enough, you come up with a solution like Joe did. It's been invaluable.
Well, thank you. And I look, at the end of the day, just like all of us as individual professionals, growing companies, we're getting better and better each day. And so that just means that our product's getting better. We're getting more focused and innovative. So we can only hope that we're going to continue to do our customers more and more value as the weeks and months lead on to 2022.
Excellent. On that note, I think it's a good place to wrap up our conversation with you, Jason. Any other things to look forward to going public at Innovate, or do we just leave listeners here thirsty for more and they have to sign up to find out?
There's a ton more. You'll find it really valuable if you go to Innovate.
I'm sure we will. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jason Detbarn, founder and CEO of Adigy. Everybody find out more at adigy.com. And thanks, Jason, for joining us.
Of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all the time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam is on the road again, phoning in from a hotel.
At least we know where I am.
Half a century combined of Apple